wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Julie Tenner.
And I'm Bridget Wood. Today's podcast is sponsored by Advanced Kinesiology. It's run by Nikki, and she is just the most wonderful, beautiful soul who we featured in our in-person retreat back in November last year. And it was so profound to have a body worker there who really helped people take the principles of what we were learning and what we were diving deep into their actual bodies and tapping into their subconscious in a physical way. Kinesiology is enormously powerful for that. In fact, it's something that I reached out to last week, still trying to shake off this cough. And what I was able to shift and walk out of there with was really...
Because what you're walking out of there with is intimate psychological or emotional access that's trapped within your body that's creating disharmony or disease.
Yeah, and it's really based on the principle that the body remembers everything. So even if we can't consciously recall an event, we are still, as we always talk about, we are still operating from that place of deep programming from earlier life experiences. And so kinesiology will muscle test you, and muscle testing is really your subconscious talking to go back to events or experiences in your life where a particular belief system became entrenched, and then you'll start to see looping behaviours that, if it was entrenched at 4, it'll be looping again at something that happened when you were 8, and then again at 15. And sometimes if you're really grounded and present with yourself, your intuition will kick in and go, oh, I know what that was, and you'll be able to recall that event. It can be quite amazing. But even if you can't at a conscious level acknowledge what that was, kinesiology still works subconsciously to help you shift some of those blocks. So it was really beautiful to have Nikki as part of our retreat, and highly recommend if you're Bayside, Melbourne, Australia, located, to seek out her services. We will.
Posts.
But our topic for this week is daily habits for awakened living. And this came about because I was thinking a lot about both of our, I suppose, personal development, self-inquiry type journeys, and a lot of the principles that we espouse and that we talk about in our upcoming online program. And it's all fair and well to have those as abstract concepts, but it's another thing to actually look at, okay, what does that look like in our lives? Like how do we live that? How do you and I each embody the things that we talk about? Because otherwise it's just lip service.
Well, the thing is we both do, though. What we're teaching is literally what has been life-changing for us.
Exactly. And I mean, ultimately, too, is continuing to teach us, because you teach what you need to learn.
Totally.
We're all doing that, whether we're aware of it or not. So by us teaching these principles, it keeps us coming back to what's important to us, and keeps us honing in and refining to what's working for us too, because life is a series of seasons, just like, the weather and seasons that we are working through are reflecting that back to us. So is our life and the way that our family works. And so things that might work, in a podcast that we're talking about in summer might be really different to how we're living now in winter. So thought we'd kick off with a little bit of a day in the life of, I suppose.
Let's start with you, Bridge.
Okay, all right. So, and this is again something that changes. So before I was pregnant, I would used to wake up much earlier than the rest of the family. So I would get up at 5:30 or 6, give myself a good hour and a half before the whole house woke up, which was just, there's something incredible about that early morning stillness when the time is simply yours and yours alone. It's cold, cold. There's the promise of a whole day ahead of you, and that whole day starts with you, and it's solely yours. And so often I would use that time to do some yoga, so just do some stretching, just to stretch out the nights,
Was it hard for you to get up?
No, because I was really inspired. It's interesting, right? Because I think so much of that's a mindset. I would go to bed with the intention that I was going to wake up early. I'd often we'll get to the end of the day as we get to it, but I'd go to bed with quite a strong sense that I'm going to wake up and do this. I was also getting up some mornings at 4:45 to take part in a online program that I'm in that's, got people all over the world, so it's on UK time. And in fact, I found myself the other day up at 5 o'clock, so I logged into that. I don't make it such a priority now that I'm pregnant, but also I figured my body's woken me up for a reason, so I'm going to go do that. And it was a really worthwhile call to be on. So yoga, stretching is a big one.
Would you do that every morning or just so many mornings a week?
There was a time when I was doing it every morning. Yeah.
A season when I was doing it every morning, because I think I was really relishing that feeling of being in my body and grounding myself in my body. And there's something, I went through a really strong... This is preconception. So this is almost the energy of creation manifesting in a different form, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
So, that is, when you're doing that, you're bringing total connection and energy to, your physical body, but in doing that, your very deep, quiet, feminine internal spaces, which is totally what you're doing when you're trying to manifest life, right?
And there's, yoga for me has been, an incredibly... in periods in my life where, like after I had my first miscarriage, where yoga gave me gratitude and love for my body once again when I had really resented it, when I had really felt that it had failed me. So yoga is my way, I suppose, to find my strength.
A channel of connection for you.
Yeah. Just, getting into warrior poses or doing, 10 sun salutations and that energy that creates within my body, and that sense of movement and power and strength that comes from that has been really powerful. So adjusting that in pregnancy has been interesting, because you just don't have the same agility and movement and I guess grounding. So it has changed since then, and now I really wake up with the family most of the time, with my son jumping into bed and, asking for whatever he wants at 7 o'clock in the morning. But that's been beautiful too, and I've surrendered to that, surrendered to what it feels. How can I, instead of resenting that I don't have the time for myself first thing in the morning, how can I use this time with my family to connect with them and in turn connect with myself? And still set the intention for my day.
I was about to say that in itself sets an intention, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're recognising that family is your highest value. So how do you align your day with your highest value? And it starts with an intention and a feeling right at the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also with saying, okay, well, if I feel like this is taking away from my time that I wanted for myself to connect in or do some work, then where else in my day can I find that and make that a priority? And it might be, now that I'm home a lot more, we're home most days now, it's, putting on a show for him for half an hour so I can get a head start on whatever work I wanted to get done, or do some stretching, do some yoga, go and do something just for myself. And that changes on different days depending on what I'm needing. But
so that's interesting too, right? Because you're noticing in the morning the resentment, which is actually an action call to do that thing for yourself.
Yeah.
And instead of feeling frustrated and stuck in the victim of I can't do it and I'm the last one and I have no time, you've thought in your head, this is almost an aligning of values, right? Because what your time to yourself aligns with health as much as it aligns with learning and career, right?
Yeah.
So you've said to yourself, I recognize that my soul wants those things today. Now is the season in this moment for family, because I know I will create the intention later in the day to meet those values, and therefore the resentment doesn't need to be here right now because I will make the space for them.
Absolutely. And this has come about as a result of some deep self-inquiry around what are my biggest button-pushing things that happen in my day, and when is it that I find it hardest to have time and space for my son or for the people closest to me. And it's often when I feel like they are taking away from the things that I've just got to get done, in inverted commas. And that's, that's a feedback because I've potentially tried to fit too much in my day, so have unrealistic expectations on myself and therefore others to fit into what I want to get done. Or it's not prioritizing, so it's not doing my highest value things and leaving and getting swept up in whatever everybody else wants from me. So it's
again, looking at my day and thinking, when can I find time for the stuff that's important to me, as well as being able to give to everybody else.
This is the importance of values, right? Is one, recognizing them, and two, aligning your life to them.
Yes.
So you live in inspiration as opposed to feeling disconnected from it.
That's right. And it's also, you know, by knowing your values, which life is talking to you, you know, you will warm up to people, like you actually physically in your body warm to people and open up when they're supporting your values, and you'll close down and become cold-bodied towards people who are really at odds with the things that are important to you. So having that awareness in myself of how I am around others helps give me clues as to where my values are at the moment. And if I really need to be in that space, okay, well, how is this going to serve? Because at the moment I'm perceiving that it's not important to me and I don't want to be part of this, and I close down and I get bored or I get distracted. Or to refocus, okay, well, how does being here right now in this place that I'm resenting or with this person I'm not aligning with, how is that serving the other areas of my life? How does it serve my family? You know, if you're at work and you're having a crap day, like how does it serve my family to really push through this, you know, resentment, block, apathy that I've got right now, to see that this is just as much supporting that other area of my life. And so bringing that kind of thinking and questioning has been, I guess, a way to transcend seeing things as, you know,
in the way to on the way.
Yeah. And, you know, transcend that feeling of like, you know, you're losing days, you know, at a time into, you know, because sometimes we all go through highs and lows and you might kind of wipe yourself out for a few days because you're feeling really flat. These kinds of questioning and, you know, self-inquiry is what has helped me to not do that, to not live like I'm in Groundhog Day, because ultimately it's my choice how my day unfolds, because it's my perception that's determining
how you're feeling,
how I'm feeling about the day,
and how you're responding.
Yeah.
And so when you come across an obstacle, a frustration or a resentment, you're doing your inquiry questioning in that moment, because you recognise that's an out of alignment feeling, which is a big call to action for you to look at it. And so instead of being swept up in it, you turn into objectification of, why is it here? What is it showing me? Where do I need to align to, I guess, diffuse the anger? The anger's there because you're out of alignment. So how do you pull yourself back into alignment?
Yeah.
And then looking at what's the mirror, what's the gift, what's the side I'm not seeing here, and how it serves what I'm actually feeling like it's taking away from.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, the mirror thing's a big one, because so easy. It's so often it's easy to get into victim mode or the blame mode, or, you know, you can just feel like your kids are absolute pains in the ass.
And the thing is, we're all going to do it from time to time.
Of course we do. But I guess, and this is when, you know, ultimately you get to the end of the day and think about what worked and what didn't work.
The 80-20 rule, though, I think, isn't it?
Of course. But this is just simply, in an ideal day, this is what I would adopt. You know, this kind of questioning, because it's never about anyone else. It's simply it's always about us. It's always us. And people are just pushing our buttons all the time and pushing our buttons to get us to love, things we love, to grow. So we can make it all about them, which ultimately just keeps us trapped, though.
It keeps us small.
Keeps us small, keeps us stuck, where we are. Keeps us feeling like we're safe, because we can be angry at the outside, but it doesn't help us move from where we are.
No. And anger is an excellent, this is the reason we have feelings like anger, right? Because it is an excellent emotional protector. Because how much easier is it to be angry than to be hurt and in pain emotionally? And
we talked about this, you know, just recently
in the Q&A
on the relationships, because anger can, we feel like we're protecting ourselves a bit.
Yeah, anger saves us. It's totally why biologically we haven't outgrown it as a skill set, really.
Yeah.
But it's about bringing conscious awareness to the emotional states, because they're still highlighting something for us.
But anger gives us things too, you know. It gets our adrenaline going, gives us endorphins. Sometimes we get a hit from it.
Yeah. There's a level of inspiration in it because it creates drive and motivation.
And, you know, if you feel like somebody's challenging your highest values, I mean, if you, for example, your family's your highest value and somebody comes in to threaten your child, that mama bear anger will just flick on like it's a primal instinct. And there's a buzz that comes with that at the same time that makes us feel alive. So, I mean, that's part of our humanity, but it's also great to ask questions about why it's there so that we can use it and move through it as opposed to being held captive by it. So I'd love to hear how you start your day.
Oh, no, let's do your whole day.
My whole day?
Yeah, and then, I think let's do your whole day.
Okay.
And then let's come back to me.
All right. If I feel, and we've done a little bit of, Jules and I have done a bit of kind of coursework together around the feminine and awakening magnetism. And I was reading back through our notes just recently, which I'd love to do another podcast on.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was. I made a whole bunch of notes from it again.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
And a lot of that work emphasised breath work and breathing into certain areas of the body to move through certain emotions. So I will also use some of those techniques sometimes throughout my day. So one particular way of breathing is to, because we hold a lot of fear in our kidneys, in our kidney area. And so if you are in that state and you feel like you need to move through something and just get centered again, you can kind of put your hands behind your back to where both of your kidneys are and kind of hold them, almost like you're kind of stretching forward with your, it's hard to explain, but how would you explain it? Kidney breathing?
Well, your kidneys sit, kind of just above your hip bones, I suppose.
Yeah.
Kind of at the bottom of your
It's kind of like you've got your hands on your hips, but you've moved your hands back around to the back to where your kidneys are, which is slightly above.
Yeah, I guess it's metaphorically thinking about as if you were just cupping them from the back, that you are holding them. Yeah.
And so there's a breathing exercise, which is breathing the air into that space, and you'll feel your ribs kind of contract to feel the air move into that space, and then you breathe the air out, and it's like a physical way to shift emotional feelings. And so that will be a practice that I adopt sometimes during the day if I'm feeling like I'm just a bit swept up in something or just need to ground myself. It's quite powerful. And I generally will always finish the day with some kind of simple kind of meditation or a gratitude list. Whether I practically do the list or not, I will reflect on my day and what I've got from my day, or what obstacles were came up for me that I can learn from, or who I connected with that I felt really inspired by or that connected to, just so that I'm bringing some kind of awareness to my life, I suppose, and what it's trying to teach me, what it's trying to teach me about myself. There's a beautiful quote from Rumi. He says, "Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." And we've talked about this before, that idea that every single person, because of the power of the mirror, and the idea that everybody is us, essentially reflected back to us, we have so much to learn from every single interaction that we have. And so many of our own illusions to transcend and grow through. And so I think that can be really powerful to think about in your day, who pushed your buttons the most, who inspired you the most, where did your heart swell in gratitude or inspiration, and what might that have been trying to tell you? And this kind of inquiry into yourself is just, it can make even the most mundane of days just rich.
Because they're all perfect.
Yeah. And there's something to be gained from everything. So that's kind of my day. In a general, how I tend to live approach. And there'll be, different things. And, different seasons to it. I mean, at the moment, I'm very much wanting to prepare myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually for birth. So for me, family connection is really important, and so I'm spending a lot more time consciously creating beautiful moments with my husband and son, and so that will be requiring more awareness of how those relationships are working and what the feedback is for me in those relationships, and cultivating more connection with my husband on all of those levels. And so that's kind of also the area of inquiry that I'm doing at the moment, whereas 12 months ago it might have been in business a lot, who did I meet or who did I connect with or who could I, grow my business with. Whereas now it's shifted a bit into the family, because I know that that will be where that transformation, that transition that I'm in, if I put the inner work in there, it will help that next stage of my life, become, even more beautiful, So, we can all, you can use your imagination to what that looks like in a day.
So when you say you're paying more attention to those relationships, what do you mean by that?
More attention in the sense of how am I feeling about disagreements or the challenges that I have, or how I feel towards them if my buttons get pushed, and what the feedback is on that. We talked a little bit in the Q&A about vulnerability. So being more vulnerable, not being as on autopilot as much with my husband.
So what does that mean exactly? Like practically, what does that look like?
When I would rather go and do some work or read a book, I will sit on the couch with him and watch something that he wants to watch and create conversation around something that's probably quite boring to me, like the football. But that's meeting him in his values. And through me meeting him in his values, the connection comes. And we can end up on a deep conversation about something totally different just from me initiating that, pushing past my apathy towards whatever it might be that he's doing that's not interesting to me, to know that if I meet him there, I will get to where I want to go.
Creating a win-win.
Yeah. So being a bit more aware of my own habits that I use to fulfill my high values, which might be learning or business or, whatever else in the evenings, which can often mean separateness because he does his thing, I do my thing, to instead go, okay, how can I meet him where he is to get to ultimately where I want, which is the deep personal connection, sense of shared values and visioning for, our next stage. And, for him, it's not, believe it or not, it's not any of this deep meaningful stuff for him. It will be talking to him about the home renovations and the things that we want to do as a family, holiday-wise, or those more practical things. But it's through those that we get that depth of connection, through talking at that level.
Because you're talking to him through the things that he finds inspiring.
Yeah.
Knowing that underneath all of that is the same value of family or relationship.
Yeah.
And so you reach the deeper point, but just not through the route that you would go to get.
Yeah, and I mean, this is very typical, I think, a lot in terms of... Well, it's very typical, I think, a lot of women want men to have the deep and meaningful, or have the heart-to-heart, or hold their space, and be vulnerable with them and have that constant talking dialogue. But the truth is, a lot of men are not wired that way. They don't feel comfortable. They don't know how to do it. And they've probably never felt safe to do it. And it's not really, it doesn't come naturally. And I think sometimes we expect far too much of them to think that it does. And this is that book that you and I both read that talks a bit about that too. It's really about, rather than emasculating men to think that they need to be a certain way or need to be more feminine or need to be more soft. Well, no, that's just us projecting. How can I really get what I want through meeting him where he is? And this is the art of communication with anybody. It's talking to what's most important to them. And that's where you get the win-win. You talk in somebody's values, you meet their values and you get your own met. So that's also where I'm at the moment. So is that me in a day? I think it is.
I don't know. I feel like there's loads more questions there, but it was an interesting insight.
Yeah, I think
so. How do you fit business in then? How does that work for you? How do you fit work in?
Chasing my tail a lot of the time. And that's one thing that I need to get a handle on, obviously. I'm about to have 2 children, obviously. About to, the pace of my life is going to change very different. The direction of my life and the space that I can have for the things that are important to me is going to change. So a lot of what I do is ad hoc. Sometimes I might get an hour or so to myself if it's nap time. I might get half an hour or so if it's, you know, the show's on the TV, whatever. So I'll fit work in where I can. I do have 2 dedicated days a week to work, which is really helpful. But a lot of the time it's really just when I can fit it in, which is not always. I know I run a bit on adrenaline there, or a bit on kind of, I can't get it all done, you know, kind of thing there. So I'm still working on how do I, you know, fulfill my family value and fulfill my business value in a way that they both add to each other, not take away. But I think, you know, ask any mother who is trying to juggle family and work, and you're the same. And you will often feel that you're not, if you're trying to do too much, you'll feel like you're doing neither of them well. So I think a lot of it's coming back to what's realistic. What's my highest priority? Is this, again, coming back to your goals in your business, is this, you know, aligned with what I really want to achieve here? Or is it just busy work? Is what I'm doing, you know, particularly
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because sometimes we can feel like we're kicking goals, but it's just because we're busy. But then if you don't have any clear outcomes to show from that, then it's just busy work. So sometimes having less time is really useful because it makes you be really pretty ruthless.
Yeah, where you spend your time.
Yeah. And sure, it means I don't answer emails as quickly, but sometimes there's blessings in that because things no longer need to be done. That can happen too. So, yeah, focusing on the highest priorities really. With the business stuff.
And so would you say you live an inspired and awakened life?
Some days. But on the whole, yeah.
I'm going to pinch one from Tim Ferriss. If you could have a billboard that was on like a major highway in any part of the world, what would that billboard say?
Oh, I know this one. What would that billboard say? Connect to yourself.
What does that mean?
I think that we live in a world where, and actually I'll take that quote in a minute, but I think we live in a world where we are constantly measuring ourselves against everybody else.
Comparison.
Yes. And I think that we, particularly these days, particularly in the last probably 15, 20 years, we are, unless we are conscious or bring a level of consciousness to the world around us, you can very easily measure yourself against everybody else and think that that's what you need to be. And that's not a way to live a life, because then all you're trying to do is fit the round peg you potentially into a square hole of society. And you are so much more than that. But you only know that when you are willing to deeply connect with who you are and to let go of some of the stories that you've told yourself about what you are or are not.
And should or should not be doing.
And should or should not be doing. And that only comes with a level of self-awareness and a willingness to cultivate that habit of giving to yourself, of giving space and time to yourself.
To deeply know yourself.
Yes.
And that's your definition of connection with yourself.
Yeah. And, you know, connection can come from, you know, and I think particularly with women, you know, connecting to your bodies, connecting to the richness of your feminine, which for so many of us has been socialised out of us. You know, that was one thing coming back through our notes of the course we did was just so strong that, you know, women, we don't know the power and pleasure that our bodies can offer us because we had moments of that when we were a young child and that wasn't okay. So a lot of us don't know that anymore. And the journey inward to find that again, I think offers just magic to all of those who want to take that path. So connecting to yourself is a myriad of ways, but I think it's just that reminder to question, is this for me? Is this my truth? Is this someone else's truth or my truth? And that's the thing, everyone has their own truth. It's just how it fits for you. Yeah.
I love that.
So what's yours? What's your day?
What's my day? Mine, I don't have a single day that ever looks the same with 3 kids.
I don't even know how you do anything beyond the mothering that you do with 3 children.
thanks.
No, but because I value so much how you mother them, and then I see all your community connections, and I just go, how's she even got time for work?
Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes I often don't give myself enough credit for actually how much I do. But sometimes I do sit there and go, wow, how does that happen? And I think how that happens is because when you come more congruent with who you are and you live in your highest values consciously, that they all overlap.
Yeah, right. I love that.
You know, so it's not like I've got, 10 different pockets doing 10 different things that require me to be 10 different people in 10 different places.
Yes.
I'm me as the center of, my universe, really, but consciously creating a life that serves the things that I deeply love and cherish.
It's beautiful.
So, for me, my top values are family, health and community. And I deeply and richly live each of those every single day.
I would agree with that. Yes, you do.
So when I do that, I'm just ecstatically happy. Generally, I mean, it's not like I don't have shit moments, because certainly do, but I handle them differently like you. I bring a level of awareness and inquiry to them as opposed to getting lost in them.
And so what does that look like? Because I would see, what question I always have for mothers of lots of children, as well as mothers who are wanting to cultivate that space for their own personal awakening and inquiry, how do you do that? So how do you have the space for all of them and their needs and the space for yourself?
Because I have the space for myself. So I can meet their needs and their requirements for spaciousness to the degree I can meet my needs and my requirements for spaciousness. So that's how that happens, right? The ability that I have to be present or narky with them is literally a reflection of how I am with myself.
I love that.
So when I'm living my version of an aligned life, I'm like you, not every morning, because if I'm feeling called to just snuggle up in bed, which is way harder in winter, I do that.
Yeah.
But I would say 4 out of 7 days a week, I'm up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. And, I had an epiphany the other week. My husband is like loving on it hard. He snores, and he snores so badly. It's been like a major issue.
Because we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
That is possibly the thing that pisses me off the most ever.
Do you know what epiphany I had, seriously last week?
Well, it makes you get up?
Yes!
Oh, brilliant.
It makes me get up because it is literally more painful to lay in bed, not being able to sleep, than it is to get up and be inspired.
Wow. Well, actually, you're reminding me. That's why I have to thank my husband for me being up at 5 the other day, because I would have been on that webinar call to the UK if he hadn't snored like a steam train.
There you go.
Thank you.
I know.
For the snoring.
I know. I woke up one morning. I'd gotten on really, it was like 4:30, and he was pissing me off no end because he was just having a lovely sleep and I could not sleep.
That's the worst.
I was like, this is shit. So I just got up and was doing work, which I feel really happy to do, because the work that I'm doing now utterly
fills you up.
Awakens my soul, and I honestly feel on fire at the moment. I honestly feel like, that beautiful quote you shared with me the other day that was like, your boat has never left the dock.
Oh, yes.
What was that? That it waits for you to be
ready for it.
To be connected to your authentic self, and then your boat is ready to leave. And I feel like that's me now.
Well, that's the other quote I shared to you. Your genius will not awaken until you get congruent.
Yeah.
So that boat, your genius, that boat is always there waiting for you for when you're ready.
For when you're aligned.
When you're aligned.
And so that's kind of how I feel now. I've been an entrepreneur now for 15 years. I've probably had 7 or 8 businesses in that time.
Yeah.
And they've all been different evolutions of me and trying to find myself. And I would have to say that now with Nourishing the Mother, which has led on to the gateway of the Pleasure Nutritionist, which has led on to me opening and awakening what my genius actually is, that I really hadn't valued for so many years, and has created then, me now going, oh my God, I've just finished my first ebook on birth, which I gave to you, Bridget.
I'm just like absolutely loving, and I've already got people lining up to buy.
Well, I'm literally like a week or two away from literally having it out there for sale. But just really owning that's kind of firecrackered all the rest of it. And then I'm just like loving so hard on Nourishing the Mother and this tribe of women and the stories that we get of awakening. Like it is just like, oh, you know, like I feel like that sound is how I feel right now in my life. So whilst my husband's snoring and I'm pissed at him in the moment, I get up and I sit down and I open my computer to do anything on any one of those, and I'm like, fuck, I love my life. You know, I feel like that. Yeah. And so by the time my kids get up and my house awakes, I'm like so jazzed and happy that, you know, that in itself is an intention that I've created this life that I'm just like so happy living.
And do you find those days, because this is certainly when I was on a roll with getting up really early and getting, say, an hour and a half's work done, the spaciousness that I would have for my family was almost exponential.
It is a profound because you already have filled your cup and your values. You've chipped away at something. It gives you an insight, an epiphany, and a connection to the inspiration of where you're headed. Yeah. And you carry that energy with you for the rest of the day.
Yeah. And this really reflects on that truth, really, that energy is infinite when you know the source. So this is where, and there's some questions in the values, which is the first week of our online program, totally pulls apart values.
Yeah. Because they're paramount.
Yeah, but one of the questions is, where do you get your energy? And this is because you might be dog tired at the end of the day. Dog tired. Same can be said for the mornings,
first
right?
In the morning, like, you know, getting out of bed. Yeah.
But there's something for everyone that makes them come alive and feel like they could be awake for days.
Yeah, totally.
And this is where you're at with this stuff.
Yeah, totally, right? So either I get up and work or I go and swim. So 2 mornings a week. I'd like to say 3, but it's really not in winter at all. But 2 mornings a week. Yeah. If I'm up early enough, I do a bit of work and then I go. But I'm at the pool by 5:30 in the water. And I love that. Like I love it. And just, I don't, you know, like I get home, my husband goes, how many laps did you do? And I'm like, I've got no idea. I don't count my laps. Yeah. Like I'm just there to be in my body. And that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about my rhythm. I'm focusing intention on the different muscles and areas of my body. And I've never been a swimmer. I've always been at the gym, or I've run, or I've done something very, very masculine. But this swimming, one, is a completely different level of fitness, and it feels like a yogic lung exercise, because I've noticed the fitness in swimming is all about breathing technique more than it is physical ability.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, I swim for however long feels pleasurable for me, and as soon as my body starts going, ugh, then I go, we're done. Yeah. Great, thanks, babe. I'll get you out of here now. Yeah. You know? And I go and have a sauna. And I sit in the sauna, and, you know, different mornings and different weeks, it's always the same people there. They're often retirees. They're often just up for a chat. Like, and I utterly adore it. I adore it. Have a shower.
I just want to reflect on sort of what you're saying here. And I think this is a choice, right? Because it's very easy to see motherhood as all-encompassing, zero time for yourself. You know, and you can easily become a victim of that, because it feels like that a lot of the time. But this is a choice you've consciously made.
I consciously carve this time out.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is a time that probably a lot of us have access to.
Yes.
When the husband's still home, you know.
Yeah, because it wasn't working exercising any other time. Yeah. It wasn't working. But getting up first thing in the morning, and again, by the time I'm home at 6:30, 7 o'clock, everybody's only just up, you know. I sit and I have a coffee every single morning with my husband. That's probably our most favourite ritual. So we get up and it's very, very slow, you know, half-hour coffee where we just sit next to each other and we cuddle, or we hold hands, or we chat.
That's beautiful.
You know, something. But the coffee ritual is really big, so either one of us get up and make it. And the kids totally know that. And I've had this slogan that I really say to them, I have to get printed on a cup, of this coffee time is literally my child free. I don't want kids on me. I don't want them around me.
Yes.
And I say to them, if one of them comes near me and I go, how does mummy like her coffee? And they go, with space. And I go,
love it.
Yes, mummy likes her coffee with space. Off you go.
Yeah. Always the time.
And it totally works for me though, because I feel like once I've done something inspiring, either connecting with my body or connecting with my soul's work.
I love that you own that, because that is also exemplifying to your children that it's okay to create space for yourself. It's okay to say yes to yourself first.
Yeah.
You know?
Because also they know on the other side of that, it's all about them.
Yeah, exactly. And you are so fully present with them when you really need to be and when it is their time.
Yep. So then our mornings are a total blur. By the time we get everybody dressed, ready, out the door, everything's packed in bags, lunchboxes made, you know, la la la. It's like crazy, as every mum out there with school kids knows. And then I drop them at school, and we have a parents' room at school. So here comes my community, right? So here's how I tick my next one. I would say 4 out of 5 mornings a week, we all go into the parents' room and have a coffee just after drop-off. Nice. So I get my community time, my connection to my tribe. I get to hash out what's going on. Often it becomes a slash, because I run the basketball club at school with another mum. So it becomes a slash hashing out what's happening for fundraising or for basketball or for this, or we've got to deal with that. So it becomes a slash business meeting, which is ace, because we're all having coffee, laughing, giggling, telling stories and doing that.
Yeah.
So that's how the club runs, right? Which is cool because it's all part of the same thing. And the parents' room has toys, all the preschoolers play. So Lola generally plays, or she'll sit on my lap while I have coffee and we, you know, do business stuff.
Yeah. Effortless. Like, you know, really does business. That's a kind of nice kind of business.
It's really fun.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's really fun. So then usually by 11 o'clock I'm thinking, I do a meal plan every week. So I already know by 11 o'clock what I need to be preparing for dinner. So I always get dinner ready at about 11 o'clock in the morning. So often it's a slow cook, or I've got preparation, so that literally I know it's a 15-minute job if I walk back in the door after.
So you cut everything up and love it.
Yep. And then I make a conscious effort to make it my work time. So I always put a movie on for my daughter, like a Disney or something like that. And I'll sit next to her on the couch while she has lunch and watches a movie, and I do work. So I answer emails, or I do whatever's most pressing for me, socials, whatever it is at that point in time for an hour. And then we're off. Usually I do something with her. We go to the park. We're doing something. It's back for school pickup, and then it's extracurricular, so she gets dragged around for that. And there's all sorts of systems with drop-offs and pickups and people going everywhere.
Coordination.
Yeah, it's like full on. You know, there's always an extra kid in tow or not, or, you know, like it's just such a fluid process because that community is so tight, which is fostered every single morning, right? Yeah. And then every single drop-off. So, and then we have, if we're home in time for extracurriculars, we have dinner at 5:30, because that is when if I press it later than that, kids get whingy and I get angry.
Yeah.
So I figured.
You found the sweet spot.
Yeah, I avoid the angry hour by having dinner ready at 5:30.
Yeah.
Because then I'm not stressed and they're not hungry. So we're eating then. And then we move straight into, it's a 0 screen time after dinner. So we move straight into bedtime routines. So, you know, baths, showers, We then always do some active play. So then we'll be doing attachment play games of some sort. So wrestling or deer hunter game that I talked about, or something, you know, pretty full on. And
on that point too, we've got podcasts on that, and we talk about that often. And we do it at home as well. It can seem like it can be a chore, but yet it's that flip, right? How can I use this time for me?
I always hate on it. Like right before I know it's coming, I'm like, oh, I don't have the energy for this. I don't want to do this. But the thing is, the second you do, it's like so ridiculously fun and funny that energy hits you.
Yeah.
Like
so it's about, it's
moving through the resistance. Yeah, the challenge is the way, right? So I push through the resistance every single night. And every single night it pays me back. And every single night I know the resistance is coming, but I also know what's on the other side of it. And on the other side of it is deep, massive connection. And often that ends in a huge family cuddle on the bed together, because often we play these wrestling
games. And I guess also it's not having to go back into the room every 5 minutes because they're resisting going to sleep, or they're
tired and they're ready by then. Yeah. So then my older two go off and read for a bit on their own, and I read stories to my younger one, and then it's lights out by 7:30, and the two girls go to bed at 7:30. Then it's quiet time for Heath on his own, and we check in with him, and he's off to bed by 8. And it's like literally they're no issue to get to sleep at all. They just go to sleep. But I think that's because of all of the connection and the play and the check-in that we've had prior to that. And then I choose, usually my husband's home by then, so we'll usually do some sort of, dance around the kitchen as we clean up and we chat and we debrief about our days and, that sort of thing. And then like you, it's conscious choice. Do I connect with him or do I do a bit more work or do we do a bit of both?
Yeah.
And often it's a bit of both because my husband is very clear on his boundaries of connection and intimacy needs to happen before he's sat down on the couch to watch TV.
Because he'll fall asleep.
Because he gets tired by then and he falls asleep. So if I'm wanting any level of emotional or physical connection with him, I know it happens after the kids are asleep before we sit on the couch.
Yes. Yeah.
So, which sounds really structured, but when you're in it is still just fun because we rolled on from kids to kitchen to then it's our time to then what's the wind down. So often I choose that we do some sort of connection then, and then the wind down is I'll sit on the couch and watch whatever he's watching because I don't give a shit what's on the TV, and I'll do work because it's hugely inspiring, but I still get to
You're still
sit
with
next to
him. Yeah, that's it. You still had that time if you chose to have that time before that.
Yeah. So I function all of my community commitments, of which are many around social catch-ups and playdates with my youngest kids and coffee, which totally works, totally serves my highest values. And those connections give so deeply and profoundly back to me that I'm often, as you know, brought to tears with the just profoundness of how what I give serves me back. Just
really humbling.
Enormously. And work I find hugely inspiring. I do it first thing. I have a crack in the middle of the day when Lola's watching TV, and I do it at night when my husband's watching TV and I'm sitting next to him. And that's how it works. But, sometimes that system won't work because one of my kids is having a big emotional uproar, which happens regularly, but, and they take it in turns. It does seem to me like they take it in turns. So
they would know when you have the space.
Yeah, but it's, it's really fluid that some days it'll be my 3-year-old and then randomly it'll be my 8-year-old and then sometimes it'll be my 10-year-old, and their, needs, connections and points of access are all incredibly different. And so I'd written that connection email to the tribe that we sent out on Friday because I'd had a doozy with my son. And in the end I really noticed that to have spaciousness, I can't have time limits as well. So I have given myself permission to let go of being late.
Which has been a big one for you, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been massive, but, really, I think the bigger the challenge, right, the bigger the benefit at the other end too.
Yeah.
So
that's because you've had to smash a story that you've been holding on to.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, it's really true. So that's been massively alleviating because that creates enormous spaciousness within me, not having to feel like I have to be anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is the joy of being, one, a stay-at-home mum, and two, doing work that I can work around my children because I don't have to be somewhere.
Yes.
I can choose to have a level of fluidity there. And that if other people are upset that I'm not somewhere, then I deal with that. Or it's, I don't need to carry it. It's just we get there in the perfect time and in the perfect way. And so my son had this massive emotional upheaval in the morning right before we've got to get to school. And it was like full on, and he's, could see him just diving deeper and deeper and deeper. And I thought, I can't send you to school like this.
Yeah.
I cannot just go get in the car and I need a space from you so you can go to school and, bring your better attitude when you get home. I thought, I can't do that to him. I'm sending him to a place where he doesn't have a parent or someone to intimately connect to. So what's going to happen to that stuff? It's just going to get stuffed down.
Yeah.
Or he'll find a non-useful way for it to come out. So maybe he'll pick a fight.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll have a shitty day. Maybe he'll be really rude to someone. It's going to come out somewhere. It doesn't just disappear, right?
Yeah.
So I made a really tough call. Because he wasn't moving anywhere. And in the end, I said to him, I can't let your sister be late because it was a special day at school. But I'm coming back to you. And I left him at home. I took my daughter to school. I literally dropped and ran at the front gate. And I came back, and that was really traumatic. On the way, I'm having to really talk to my daughter about it, who was really empathetic and really plugged into Heath, and talk to her about, I'm not leaving him. I'm coming back to have more space and more time.
Was that hard for you because you've never left him?
I've never left him before like that. Yeah. Oh, no, I have left him at home, but for I've run up to the shops for 5 minutes because now he's 10, he's wanting that kind of space.
Yeah, but to leave him in that state.
Yeah, it was really hard, but I really had to make a call around what will give give me more spaciousness right now, and not feeling time pressured because my daughter will miss out on something that has nothing to do with her was what was holding me back. So I thought if I just deal with that and get it out of the way, I've got all the time and space in the world for him. And so that's what I did. I chose to remove the obstacle that was really holding me back from holding spaciousness for him. But in the way, it left for great communication with her because she got it. By the time she left from feeling really wounded and sad and upset and plugged in, to by the time I dropped her at school 5 minutes later, she was like, "That's okay, no worries, he'll be fine." And so we came back, and I'd spoken to my youngest, was in the car with me too, and I'd spoken to her about it. You know, when you get home, you're going to need space from you. I deal with heat. She just walked in the door, went off and did her own thing.
Wow.
And so then it was this, you know, really big spaciousness that Heath needs. And we came, you know, half an hour later, we were in at the bottom of it. He's, you know, in tears, which is beautiful because that's what I look for, to know I've hit that sweet spot. And then came the process of kind of, you know, putting him back together again. So allowing him to, you know, remove the anger enough to break into the vulnerability, to get to the tears and the hurt, and then to kind of, you know, let the hurt go, but at the same time pad him back up again from the pain and the wounding. So, which I think, you know, I didn't give myself enough credit for at the time. I was hugely hit by the profoundness of offering spaciousness in those moments, because that child who was so angry was actually just so wounded. He was so hurt by something that had happened that I hadn't picked up on. And, you know, when we got to the bottom of it, we could certainly workshop it. I could talk to him about it and And the connection and the healing for him that came out of that was, you know, was profound. And so by the time I brought him back to school, he was really ready and present and grounded. Like his energy was just, you know, straight in. He wasn't
being held captive by those feelings anymore. No. He transcended them.
And he, you know, had a beautiful day. He had just an excellent day. And by the time I picked him up from school, he burst out, you know, gave me a hug, had a great day, you know, And I thought, you did because you were ready to meet your day.
Yeah.
Talk about creating intention,
and
right?
what a difference that outcome is versus having to have shoved him in the car to get on with his day. And
yeah, could totally have gone the opposite way, which I've certainly done at times too.
Yeah.
So that's what spaciousness looks like for me. So creating an awakened life for me is seeing my children awaken in themselves as much as me awakening in myself, and that me awakening in myself connects me so deeply with the profound feelings of genius and inspiration that I see it so clearly around me. And I so see that it's possible. You know, that's really different to this lip service of just, you can be anything you want, honey. Oh. Like I feel it in my body of how possible it is to live a life that you just love, that doesn't have to look the way that you thought it had to look, but that feels more profound than you ever thought was possible. And when you start to recognize that in your children, I could seriously burst into tears right now when I think about it. Like,
it's so beautiful.
The connection and the awakening, it's just like, I go, yes, you know, like this is life.
Yes. And it's life-giving. I mean, those moments that you can create, and I totally am seeing myself doing this more now as I prepare my son to share us, right? Which is a massive transition for a child. So I'm really zoning into what I need to give him. And like you can either choose to see your children as taking away from you and sapping your energy, or giving you energy. And there are moments when I just feel like he fills me with energy. Those moments of being able to really see them for who they are, like really see them, and really try to align their life to their values and live that excitement with them.
But I also think you can only do that when you really experience it for yourself.
Exactly.
When you pave the way and you know how it looks and feels, that's when you can show the way and see it and feel it in another.
Yeah.
It's really profound.
Because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're giving it otherwise. Like it can feel too disjointed or impractical unless you're able to really have a taste of that yourself. So, I mean, it comes right back to the amount of space you have for everything else in your life is equal to the amount of space that you can first give to yourself. And that looks different for everybody. And it stems from your own unique set of values and what lights you up.
And questions that you ask yourself along the way to peel back those layers. Because if you're not asking the questions, then you're never going to get the answers.
No, not at all. So that was a big, juicy episode.
I don't know. It feels fairly self-indulgent, but I hope so.
It kind of does, but I feel like that we've talked a lot of abstract concepts which might sound like lip service. And so I thought it was really useful for us to, I guess, workshop a little bit and give some insights into our days and what practices we adopt to align and ground ourselves with what's important to us. Because there's no right or wrong way, really. It's just what works for you. And that's evolving for each of us as our life evolves.
Yeah, it's true. So if you'd love to come on this aligning journey with us, our Loathing to Loving program closes this week. Registrations will close on Sunday. I do want to put out that this is our first trial run of this program, so it will only be this price for this trial run, and it will never again be this price. That's because the amount of love, effort and tools that you get out of this is certainly worth more than what we're giving it away for here. Having said that, the investment of really saying yes to yourself and doing something like this has ripples far beyond what you can even conceive, I think, as you and I both know with everything that we've ever embarked on.
Absolutely.
Like that too.
Yeah.
And
so
connect with you.
Yeah, so you can connect with me at suburbansandcastles.com and you, Jules.
thepleasurenutritionist.com, and us is nourishingthemother.com.au. And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.